welcome all of you. I'll quickly introduce. I mean, Nisanth has been studying uh, seabirds. I mean, he spent a lot of time in Andamans and all. Lakshadweep, especially. Yes, Lakshadweep. Sorry. So
Right.
that's what I meant. So it's actually a part of our. We've been doing this webinar for uh, almost 28 days. So anyway, not much introduction. Over to you. You can introduce yourself. I mean, it's already we wasted 10 minutes. Over to you,
Okay.
Nish.
Okay. Thank you so much, David, for the introduction. So, a very good evening to all. So, myself, I'm Nisanth, research scholar doing our research on Department of Aquatic Biology and Fisheries, University of Kerala. So, I just started birding along with most of all the people with Hari Kumar sir and Sri Kumar sir, etc. And I'm the part of the KNS also, and of introducing. The KNS is introducing me into the world of birding. I can clearly say that the webinar bird count. It's one of the major bird counts in Kerala, which helps a lot of students to or youngsters to get into the field of birding. So before I start my presentation, I would like to take a few seconds to congratulate the KNS and ANHs for providing such a platform in this lockdown days. And it's almost 28 days, and I'm sure that almost 28 topics are almost it's covered. Uh, then best wishes and for the team behind this project or ENWENAR. So I think it's audio is clear now, right? So.
Audio clear.
Yeah, thank you. So today I just like to take you to the world of seabirds, the general introduction, and also I just plan to do the section into two. And the first section, it's a basic to know that the general thing, including the evolution and some adaptations of the seabirds and the current status. And the second part, we will have some just see some of the common seabirds, especially the pelagic birds, which is found especially in the southern west region, which is a part of my study area, and almost just give some tips to how to I can clear it out and I can find the birds and I can identify these things in while we are in the field. Okay, so with your permission, I would like to start my presentation on the introduction to the world of seabirds. So I just start with the basic thing is like, as you know, that what is a bird and actually what does it look like? So which are the characters which makes you feel that it's a bird? So when we look at that and from the external wise, we can say that the figure, the wings, the naked legs, and the beak, and the body, instead of hairs and scales, they are covered with feathers. So when we look at the bird outside, we can see that there's four characters which leads to, we can say that it's a bird. So then when you look into the bird, to the skeletal system, it's also, so it belongs to vertebrate. They have a vertebral column over there. And along with that, some modifications and adaptations that we can see in the birds when compared to reptilians and other human mammals. So first one is the synsacrum. It's the lower part of the vertebral column is fused in birds. So the structure is called as synsacrum. Then the other structure is the keel, which is a modified sternum, or we can say that it gives a streamlined body, and also it helps in many ways. And the furcula or the wishbone, to which the bird's the wing muscles are attached. And the most important thing is the pneumatic bones. In all the reptilians and also in mammals, we have a core, rigid, solid structure. But in case of birds, they have a network. It's confirmed by these kind of small structures. It helps in two ways. It can reduce additional. It can provide additional support to the bones, and also it can reduce much weight. So both of things is essential for the bird, which helps in flight. So when we look at the birds in outside and inside, there are some difference. Then this is one of the picture. It's one of the pictures is drawn by the Perry Bellon in 1555. He just compared the bird skeleton with a human. You can see that how much similarity we can trace it out when we change the perspective, when we rearrange the bones into a certain perspective. We can surely can say that there's some more similarity when which can compare birds with the humans. So then it's clear to you that the most of the first fossil which gives clues on the birds is evolved from reptilian is from the Archaeopteryx, the fossils of Archaeopteryx. 150, 145 million years ago, 1 million years old fossils. And later on the excavations, there is a lot of fossils which proves one thing, that it's clearly that the birds which is evolved from the reptilian clade. So then move on to the main of today's topic, so the seabirds. So the first section part will start from here onwards, and titled as "What makes seabirds as, or what makes me happy." So when we talk about seabirds, it's in a broad sense we can say that the birds which are devoid of land, they just venture into the sea in search of food, and they just realize that they are for the marine environment gives much more the food, and they just start to colonize in the islands. And some group, they just venture into the sea for day instance on a daily basis, and others just spend years in the sea and just come back only for breeding to the ground. And when we talk about, they are considered as in the marine food web, or it's considered as apex predators, and also in the wider sense it's act as the indicators of the many parameters which helps to identify, to check the marine health in total. Then comes to the diversity, seabird diversity. In the total bird diversity is almost about 10,000 species of birds in together. Among that, only 350 or 360 species is considered as seabirds. Only a very small group of 3.5% of birds, we can say that it's a somehow in one way or other, it depends on the sea. Then, okay. So when we look what are the major adaptations which helps the seabirds to thrive in the marine environment. So it starts from the almost 6 characters. We can say that it helps the birds to thrive in the marine environment, like the webbed feet. For extent, it helps in swimming and also propeller in the flight from the takeoff the sky from the water. Then the wing morphology. In case of most of the birds, they have a long and tapered wings. And in case of birds like penguins, they have shorter and sturdy wings, which helps them to dive in the water. Then additional other structure involves the sac glands and also the adaptations in the beak. And the feathers, when compared to terrestrial birds, and the feathers also have some additional characters. It's provide much more insulation to the water, and also it helps them to prevent the water penetration. And not but least the plumage coloration, and most of the birds, most of the seabirds, they have a counter shading. Its terminology is termed as counter shading. It's generally light color on the bottom and the relatively dark color on the top, which helps to mask from the predators and prey at the same time. So these are the 6 major characters which helps the seabirds to thrive in the marine life. So we can look some characters in detail, like the feathers, and it's when we take the feathers and the arrangement of feathers, the seabirds have a density, body to feather density is very high, which means when we take a unit area, the number of feathers is comparatively high when compared to terrestrial birds. So it's provide 2 things. It helps the bird to maintaining buoyancy and also just prevent from the water penetration. And when we look the structure of the seabirds, most of the flight feathers, they are stiffer than the terrestrial birds. So it's also a way to dive through the water, and also just it's helped them to dive through the sturdy wings, and it's provide resistance to the physical tear and wear caused by the adverse condition while they are taking a migratory route. So these are the major things which adaptations of the feathers. Then they have a other kind of feathers called powder feathers, and which helps to repel water and provide a thorough insulation. Then seabirds, they just spend more time in water, and they can usually they can drink water, they drink seawater, and the excess salt in the seawater is get reduced, expelled out through the glands, which is found near to the head. It's called the nasal gland or salt gland, which extract the excess amount of salt and is uh, expel out through the nose or the beak. So we can see the runny nose of the birds while they are in the field, or it's just expel out the excess amount of salt. Then in some birds, they have adaptations in their eyes too. In case of gannets and penguins, albatross, they can, when they are dive into the water, they can change the structure of the lens and also the cornea. The two structures which helps uh, to make a clear vision. So while arranging or by adapting to these small changes, they can provide a very clear vision inside, like a fishy, like just like a fish eye, or it can be clear vision in the sea, inside the sea, and it will really helpful them for to get the clear vision underwater and for the prey capturing. And another important thing is that inside the corn cells are one of the cells which in the retina, which will provide these are cells to capture light and also gets compel it to give a vision. In case of in all birds and mammals, they also have these corn cells, but in case of seabirds and also the another marine forms, they have oil droplets inside, just near to the visual pigment. So it is in case of birds, like in marine bird, they are red and yellow color droplets. So it gives two things. First thing is that it accumulate is the vision, and also the red and pigment just act as a sunglasses. So they can see clearly in the intense light, intense blue light. So these are the adaptations that can be can see in the eyes. So okay, uh, is it hello? Is it clear, or can you hear?
Yeah, yeah, it's clear. It's
Yes,
clear.
fine. Okay, it's also the okay. Then okay. Then when we talk about the seabirds, they have a different kind of strategies while they are prey, and also they are searching of prey and foraging. They have different kind of foraging strategies are followed. It start from the piracy or kleptoparasitism. They just chase the bird and catch the prey, and some group, they just dive into the deep and collect the food. And it's also leads to the one thing that even though the sea is uniform, they prefer resource partitioning is there, and each group of birds prefer a particular kind of fish, and also some different kinds of fish, and also the foraging range is also differ according to their strategies of feeding. And then the important thing is where is where's the what's position, and where is the bird we can place in the food web. And food web is the interconnecting link between how the birds and how the organisms are interconnected through by being eaten and being eaten up. And when we consider this, the major food of seabirds is considered as it's from the small fish, squid, and to the large uh, zooplankton, including krill and petrels, etc. They just feed on the krills. And when we consider the whole bird group, almost 80% of the birds are considered as top predators or apex predators, and the rest of the things it's served as scavengers, which feed on the discarded food items. Then we can just move on to then what is the role in case of ecosystem services or ecosystem role played by these seabirds. So they just act as a link in the nutrient transfer, especially between the marine and terrestrial ecosystem. And it is more evident during the breeding season, where they are feeding, they just take for food from the sea and they just drop it in the land, and from there's as a circle from this leach out from the land, it's become the food for the just phytoplankton and corals, and again the food chain continues. So it acts as a link between the marine and terrestrial ecosystem. And the guano, or the fecal matter of this seabirds, it consists of almost 16%. So all the 60% of nitrate is taken from the sea itself and is deposited in the land.
Nishan,
Yeah.
can you please put the mic steady, because sound is variation is high.
So now it's yeah,
Not
it's
clear,
yeah.
but the sound variation is high, because you are moving the mic or moving your head. That is why.
Like okay. I just fix it now. Okay, now it's clear, right? Yeah.
Yeah, clear.
Okay. So that's a role in seabirds in during the ecosystem services that we provide by the seabirds. Then many of the species of seabirds is considered as the indicator species to the scientists and all other things, because they can respond very rapidly to the changes in environment. And also by looking at this simply by the abundance and also the species presence, we can tell a lot more about the structure of and the function and the health of the marine ecosystem. And in course, and also we can detect the pollution level with by from the feathers and from the fecal matter. We can try and we can gain so much of knowledge about the condition of the ocean, and also it will really helps in making the fisheries management and all those things. But so we can say that by simply monitoring the seabirds itself gives a lot of information towards the health of the marine environment. So when we look, it's a when you look the status of the seabirds as a whole, you can it's a report from the State of World Birds by International BirdLife International 2004. It shows that when we compare all the groups of birds, seabirds are the most threatened. Their population is fairly declining in a faster pace than any other organism, any other kind of birds. And it's a status like almost 28% of the seabirds are in the threatened group. So you can say that only 360 species, and among the 360 species, about 28 species are 28% of the species are in the threatened list. And also the seabird, when we look at the seabird population, also almost 50% of the seabirds population is decreasing rapidly. So this is an alarming rate, and it shows that it needs some more in the part of conservation aspects. Also they need more help from our side. So one of the reasons, or the major reason, is the life of the seabird itself, because they are the most vulnerable kind of group of birds, because of this long lifespan, which leads to the delayed reproduction. So when birds usually takes 1 to 2 years to get into the reproductive stage, and also the number of chicks and the number of youngs per year is also comparatively very low when compared to any other groups. Only they will get only 1 or 3 chicks. Most of the birds, they lay only a single egg, and also a relatively high incubation period. It's almost 1 month is needed for to get 1 month, 2 months is required to get to hatch the egg. Even though they just hatch, they need a parental care from 30 days to 80 days, depends on the species. And as you know that if you want to maintain a stable population, adult birds population should be maintained. Here in the in the case of seabirds, adults bird can be, survival rate of adults bird is up to 95%. It's okay, but the problem is there with the first winter. So first the youngs in the younger stage, on the younger stage of the birds, almost 50% is under the threat. So, and also it's needed a wider foraging area to tackle or to get the food. So any of these things is hindered, it will directly affect to the life of the seabird. So it's directly lead to the decline in population. Then along with that, the human-induced form. Okay. The human-induced threats also accelerate this decline in population of the seabirds. And it's studies done by Dias et al. In 2019. It shows almost 16 factors which hinders the population. It affects the population and also the life of the birds. And among that, almost 75 to 80% is contributed by the six factors. So we just look by one. Hello.
Okay, you can see. Please continue.
Yeah, okay. So we can check one of the major things how it affects. And the first and foremost thing is the climate change. The climate change, not only for seabirds, all animals are affected by the change in climate, and seabirds are affected the most, one of the mostly affected, because it's affect in this migratory pattern, the range of migration, and also the time that the climate change alter with the time, and most of the migration depends on the time and the climate. So the change in climate also affects the initial stages in the migration level. And also the other factor is that there's a changes and alternations in the breeding ground and also in the foraging area. And as the climate change, for say for example, it's a see some surface temperature is increasing, so it will affect the prey abundance. So it's need the seabirds have tend to go for search for more to get the prey, and also the prey availability is also get hindered due to the climate change. So indirectly or directly effects of climate change is affected the seabird population. Second one is the problematic alien species. Alien species are the introduced species, or which is not belongs to that community. So the alien species and also the some of the native species also cause threat to the seabirds. And in case of alien species, it's considered a lot of the studies is considered as the rodents and the feral cats are the most problematic alien species which affect the seabirds in a bigger manner. And also in case of native species, especially in Lakshadweep also, we can say that many of the papers which suggest that the hermit crabs, they poses a great threat to the eggs of the breeding population in the Lakshadweep Islands, especially in the Piti Islands. Then overfishing. The overfishing also causes a great threat because of the depletion of prey abundance. So it will take off almost all the prey. It's affect the food web initially, or it's overfishing. It's directly correlated with the food abundance of the seabirds. So if the overfishing is increasing rapidly, the fishing activity is very high. So they just suffer a lot for to get the food. So it also increase the foraging time of these birds. Then other factor is the pollution, especially the plastic and oil pollution is a major threat to the seabirds. And the recent studies suggest that almost every seabird have consumed plastic once in a while in their lifetime. So that sort of threat they process in the case of plastic pollution. And the greater threat for seabirds is documented as the threats caused due to the bycatch, the unintentional catch of these birds. This is not targeted, it's not intentional, but the lots of birds is caught in the net of the fishermen. It's one of the serious threat because during the drag phase, when the net pull out, we can according to the bird they just saw the shallow fish. So they just try to get the fish from the net. Unfortunately, they just caught it, and it's caused ultimately leads to the death of the seabirds. So these are the major fact which cause the depletion of bird population. So here we put just pause for that, and if you have some questions, can before moving to the second section, we can have some discussion if you have the questions. David.
Yeah, they can come to the chat box if they have any questions. They can ask.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one question. When you showed some of the marine mammal as their food also, so do they actually go and scavenge the big floating animals also?
No, scavenging there's not seen. It's daily they just main out for the dead like turtles and all those things. They scavenge all those things, small blood. Not in, and also they just go for the discard items in the food, where the throwing by catch by the fisheries. After they catch the fish, they just throw back the discard waste and they just consume that. The gulls and terns, it's much prominent. Yeah. Depletion of bird population.
There's a question in the chat box. Can you see it? What is the extent of overfishing in Indian context?
So overfishing, it's I think it's a very serious issue in case of Indian context, because the trawling fisheries and also the trawl boats are very high when compared to any in the sea, and they just go for instead of they just go more beyond for that what we can say for the pelagic fish. It's pelagic fisheries they for like sardines and all those things. So it is a major food for the seabirds. So it's very high in case of in India. Yeah. So okay. David, so where's the chat? I think.
How can you? Yeah, there's one more question from Bhagisri Kesar.
Yeah.
How can you work into increase the seabird population?
So increase the seabird population, right?
Yes.
Actually, I don't have that. Sorry for that. I don't have the answer right now. But I
No,
think,
there is another question. Probably you can
yeah,
tap into that. Does captive breeding will help to bring back the population of threatened species? Is there any captive?
I think there's no such studies are carried out. But because there is the need, the main choice is when consider of the seabirds, the main choice is one of the important factor, and it's also most of the times depends on the availability of the food availability. They just coincide. Just for the mating also, they just for laying out for the breeding success also, they choose for the food abundance, and also the mating choices is there. So captive breeding, I think, is not work further. I don't know in in the world they have this kind of things, but for personal opinion, I don't think that it's helpful in the increasing the breed. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Probably you can switch to other topic then
yeah.
identification of
Okay. Right. Right. Okay.
back
Thank you.
and ask question. Thank you.
Okay. So the first, I just tackle just completed section that now the history of the birds, you know about what is a seabird is. Then you can move on to the next topic, is this next section, and it's dealing with some of the, just trying to give you an idea of some of the birds which is commonly seen in the western side or southwest region. So these are the topography of the seabirds, and mainly we look at the flanks, belly region, and also wingtip, primaries, etc. And also the beak structures also will be really helpful in identification of seabirds while in the field. And also, so okay. So before, yeah, before entering the to the section, and I would like to say about I just said that the birds they have a really long lifespan, and they, so in between that they change from the juvenile to adult. They have different set of plumages as seen, and the plumage is nothing but the feather pattern or feather patterns, and also we can say the color and feather patterns of the seabird, or any bird can be defined as a plumage. But and in case, and plumage is very common in every species of the birds, and also this plumage will but in case of seabird they show some difference on different ages. They possess different kind of color or pattern. So just say that in the case of birds, the plumage A is a set of color or pattern, and through the process of molting it changes into plumage B, and the molting is just a process of replacement of feathers. Sometimes we just term usually with molt and see plumage, like just use both the terminology. So plumage is a set of color patterns, and molting is the process of changing, because the only way to change the feather is to replace it, because they are the dead structure. So the process, through the process of molting, they just change the pattern. And in case of seabirds, we can see a lot of patterns in between the stage when it reaching in the adult plumage. And this is a terminology which we used in the most of the field guides and all those things. And basically, we have the British birds terminology, and the birds of West Pelagic terminology, and Humphrey Park system of terminology. So why I put it in this slide, because in most of the field guides, they just follow the British bird uh, terminology. And most, if you look at the papers and all those things, along with the calendar terminology, they use Humphrey Park system to define the plumage and molt in each stage. So when we say that definitive basic, it's adult winter, both are same. So to avoid confusion, I just put that to follow any of these strictly follow, or if you follow this any of this terminology, it will be helpful to avoid the misleading concepts. Then move on to the seabird groups. And first one is the first group is called, we can say that the procellary forms, the order procellary forms. It's one of the true seabird and the true pelagic birds, we can say, because it includes shearwaters, petrel, storm petrel, and the albatrosses, etc. One of the smallest and the largest group of birds are included in the procellary forms. And the major identification characters of this procellary form is its beak. These have a plate-like beaks, and above that, it's just a nostrils is attached. Some groups like albatross, they are fused together, but we can see that plate-like structures and the hooked beak. It's also the characters of this procellary forms. So these groups is identified by mainly through this beak. And also they have, when they talk about the coloration, well, dark forms and white forms are there. Then we can look at the common, most or frequent seabird group in the western side or southern southwest region. And first one is the most common precellary form is the flat-footed shearwater. And we can just identify the identification key of this is just 1 minute. Okay, the identification key is its beak. It's have a pale beak with a dark tip, and also they have a pale legs, and the tail is not much prominent when compared to wedge-tail shearwater. When we look at the wedge-tail shearwater, when compared with this, the size is almost same. We can say the flight in the field, it's very difficult to compare which one is larger, which one is smaller, but you can see the clearly say that the beak, it's purely blackish color or the dark colored. And look at the wings also, look at the tail feathers. It's very prominent or it's long than fresh-footed shearwater. So with these two characters, we can distinguish between the wedge-tail and fresh-footed shearwaters. Then in case of wedge-tail shearwater, there is two morph is seen, and it's most common is a dark form. Dark morph is most common, but light pale morph is also there in case of in case of wedge-tail shearwater. And you can see that the wing it's the wedge shape. That's we call it as a wedge-tail shearwater. So the dark morphs may sometimes may confuse with the fresh-footed shearwater, but the pale morph may get confused with the other group of shearwaters. Just show this. These two are the Cowrie shearwater and Persian shearwater. So the pale morph may get confused with these two species. And for this Persian shearwater, it's relatively easy to identify, like they have a brownish shape or a dark colored nap or crown region. And also they look at the wing pattern, it is much more darker. And when it comes to the Cowrie shearwater, its bill is almost pale and thick. And also the underpart of the wings is much more pale, it's much of clear and white plate when compared to the Persian shearwater. So these are the characters we can distinguish between the Persian shearwater and the Cowrie shearwater. Then other kind of shearwater which is reported is that streaked shearwater. The main identification character of this shearwater is the paler whitish color over the head, and it is much bulkier than other Persian shearwater and other shearwater. Then we have other petrel is called giant petrels, which is reported from the Kerala itself and the Kerala region also. And it can be evidently we can distinguish by analyzing this broad shape of the bill. And also while they're flighting, they just look downwards, and they're down instead of straight posture, they have a downward looking face. So, and it's also bulkier in structure. So by analyzing this, simply by looking at this bill, it will give a clear idea about the shape of the wing. Shape of the bill will clear idea about the ID. Then the smallest of the speedbird groups like storm petrels, and two species are much common in Kerala waters, or you can say then southwest region, and the Wilson storm petrel is more frequent. And you can just these are small birds up to 10 to 12 centimeter or 15 centimeter. That's a length. It's very small birds, and the distinguishing factor hiding of this Wilson storm petrel is when compared to Sinhoi's storm petrel is clear there by this white patch over the hind region. And also in case of Sinhoi and also in case of the Vincent round petrel, the wings are more or less round shaped. So by analyzing these two characters, it's very simple to identify. It's very easy to identify the Vincent storm petrel, but sometimes they may get confused with the white bellied storm petrel in some cases, but it's rare. In case of white bellied storm petrel is rare, and in case of white-bellied storm petrel, they have instead of the white patches over there, it's under wing part, and its belly region also contains the white patches, so it can easily distinguish. And when come to the Sinhoi storm petrel, the wing structure difference, and the major identification mark is that they lacks the white spot over the belly region. Then move on to the other group like called pelicaniforms. And the pelicaniforms includes boobies, gannets, and frigatebirds, pelicans, etc. Uh, the identification characters or the major characters of the pelicaniforms may depend on the feeding strategies, and also each groups may varies. In case of boobies and gannets, we can say that it's a hardy shaped bill will give the distinguished characters. It will helps a lot in while they are diving. It will act as a streamlined body. It will helps to plunge into the water. It will get reduce the resistance. So these are the structures with, and most of the birds which have a larger in size and compared to fossilary forms and other forms, these are the group with larger size. This is a form. This picture shows the masked booby, and we have other two boobies are also reported, like blue-footed booby and red-footed booby. So its color itself, the foot color will give you the ID. Like blue-footed booby have a blue colored, and red-footed booby has it's almost a light red colors of the links of the legs. So by analyzing these two things, we can identify this. And this is a masked booby with prominent characters over the yellowish beak. Then in Kerala waters and also in the western part, southwest region, there's frigate. In case of frigate, where three kinds of frigate birds are reported, like the greater frigate bird, Christmas line frigate bird, and lesser frigate bird. So the indicators of adult plumage and adult male plumage is very easy to identify these things with bellied marks on the white patch. In the great frigate bird, there is a lack of white patches over there, but in case of lesser frigate bird, there's a white patch over the flank region, and also in case of Christmas weather, Christmas Island frigate bird, or simply Christmas frigate bird, there's white patches over the lower part. So by providing, but in case of its adult plumage, it's very clear. But in case of intermediate or in the first stage, it's might sometimes it may cause some problem in the ID, and especially in the case of female frigate bird, also we can sometimes we get confused with the ID. Then of your Phaeothoniforms, it is exclusively for the order, which is exclusively for the tropic birds. One of the true, we can say that after the procellary forms like shearwaters, this one is considered as another pelagic forms. And mainly the two species are reported, like a white-tailed tropic bird and red-billed tropic bird. In the white-tail, you can see that it's yellowish bill and a long white tail. And case of red-billed tropic birds, the adults it's have a red bill and also the white tail. And we have one more species like a red tailed tropic bird. It's almost look like the red billed tropic bird with red tail. So it's directly identification. It will be easy. And in case of juveniles, it may be sometimes it's cause some difficulty in identification. Then comes to the charity forms, or it consists of almost half of the seaboards, or we can say almost all the shorebirds and near shorebirds, etc. They are the largest group, and it comprises of the skuas, terns, puffins, gulls, skimmers, and other shorebirds. And they too lack a horny plate or a thicker structure, but it's more look like steady phase. And case of the major pelagic forms include in charadiforms include the skuas. It's if you with a prominent ID characters, it will be very easy. It's probably frequently easy to identify, but the problem is that most of them lacks this identification character and they overlap with the ID character. So most of the time it's tricky to identify the seabirds in the field. But we can say that if the prominent characters are evident, then it will be more easy. In case of just look at the Pomeranian skua and Arctic skua, the most common one in Indian waters. And in case of Pomeranian skua, they have a hiding character it's very easy. If the prominent character is there, it's a long, sturdy tail with a spoon-like structures on the end, or it's a so legs out structures, or we can say that the central tail is protruded outwards with a thick, and also with the end it's like a spoon-like structures on the wing. And also when we compare with the Arctic skua, the Pomeranian skua have a thicker bill, and the bill angle is much more evident. And also the structures, like when we consider the wing structures, they have a broad structures. They have a, when compared to the Arctic skua, they have a broad and with less length, or just for shorter primaries. But when we look at, when it comes to the Arctic skua, it is more evident with they have a uh, slimmer body with not much prominent in angle, and also they have a long, narrow wing with long primaries. And the most important character for of is that long pinpoint tail. The end of the tail is look like a tapering ends that's long. Two tails are long and tapered ends. So this is an identification character of seabird. In the case of Arctic squirrel, this is an identification character. And in case of Pomeranian squirrel, it's a long bill, but more long broad tail. The long broad tail is the identification character. But sometimes due to the tearing and wearing this uh, tail is much prominent, so that's why this will be much tricky, and let's look for other characters. Usually in the field it may be difficult, but in the photographs we can do it. And the another squash which is located, it's reported from in Kerala or on the western side of the region, is the long-tailed squirrel. So we can, its ID is characterized by this long tail, long, narrow, thin tail with blunt end. In case of Arctic squirrel, there is a pointed end, but here in case of long-tailed squirrel, it's long, relatively long, almost 9 inches in length. Here it's short, and relatively much larger length with uniform. It's a uniform length with a blunt end. And also the other character is that it is much more smaller than Arctic squirrel and a Pomeranian squirrel, and it's much more grayer in color. And both other squirrels are much more brownish in nature. But exceptions are there. In case of Pomeranian, in breeding plumage, it's much more look like a grayish tinge. Then let's move on to some pelagic forms of terns. We have the brittle tern and the sooty tern. It looks almost similar, but size-wise, its sooty tern is much larger than it's larger than the brittle tern. And the most of the key characteristics in the hiding is the white spot on the bill. You can see that it's the sooty tern. It's broad and it's round shaped. In the case of brittle, it's just like a mark over the eyebrows. Just look like the eyebrows. So these are the two forms of terns, pelagic terns, and the other one is the brown noddy, which is they have a sooty tern, and the brown noddy, they have a breeding population in the Piti Islands of Lakshadweep. And in case of brown noddy, it's just the color, the name itself is brownish tinge in color, and also they have a paler upper part, or the nap or the crown region. It's most of it's whitish tinge over that, and its eye also we can see that there is a white marking over the eyes. So these are the distinctive characters of this brown bovie in the field. But sometimes we get just confused with the sooty tern's juvenile. So it's almost black, but look at the beak and the feather pattern. It can easily identify whether it is a sooty tern and brown noddy. And why I'm saying this, that the both brown noddy and sooty tern, it's breed in the Fiji Island. So you can see these two forms together. Then it's not, it's truly, we can say that it's not a pelagic bird, but the seabird. One is Caspian tern and gunbill tern. And it's much more easy to identify in gunbill. They have a guard-like broad thick beak, and in case of Caspian tern, it's whitish with a orange tinge with a yellow cap, sorry, black cap. So that's all. So when you next time when you notice any of the seabirds, and then look look at the the overall size, color, and it's more important. But just have a look, just give some more importance to the legs, tail, and the bill tip, and also the primary. It will help you. If you notice in particular, it will give you help lot in IDing of the birds, even though when we look at the photos. Then I'd like to conclude with the remarks of the two slides. In the couple of two slides, I would like to conclude this talk and serve the future of seabird. These are some of the research purpose which tells you about the research opportunity and conservation status of the seabirds. And in some, when we try to summarize all the things, that the research on the seabirds is far from complete. And even though till now we don't have any clear-cut answer to many of the questions, and also still most of the things are unanswered. So there's a lot of scope, a lot of things which we try to cover in the case of to understanding the status of. Then simple question: why they are there in the sea, why they are there in the marine life, or why they are, what are the things? Even though we have some kind of ideas and we know some kind of concept, but a thorough experimental setup is still now we are lacking. Then the importance of citizen science. in a conservation, especially in case of India, or especially case of in India, because if you look at the status on the research papers or the scientific literature available on the seabirds, particularly in the from India, it's contributed by the more by the citizen science than any other field, and almost all the pelagic surveys, especially we can say that in Kerala, especially in Kerala, we can, I don't know what the other state status, sorry for that. And in Kerala, almost all the pelagic surveys are conducted by, most of them are conducted by any of these natural history NGOs and natural history societies. And at least we get one from the south, from when we consider from Kerala, from the south to north. South is conducted by most of the time by the Travancore, and from the north it's conducted by the MNHs and CNHs. And in mid, we can say that Alappuzha and Kottayam Society is conducting pelagic surveys at least once in a year. It will give a lot of information, at least once in a year conducting it, and each and every trip will give you some interesting results. So it shows that citizen science can contribute more in case of contributing more in the seabird. And when we look at the person who contribute more in case of papers like Praveen and Tipu Kartaram, they just give a lot of information. They are not the part of the citizen science. They are not true scientists, but they give immense information about the distribution, about the abundance, and also the checklist. It's one of only the checklists available. The current status is only produced by the Indian birds, by compiled, or usually it's compiled by the Praveen and Tipukarthedam. And recently there is a monograph of skuas is also by Tipukarthedam, which shows the different modes of the different patterns of skuas. So it gives a lot of stuff. So we can ignore the contributions of these NGOs in contributing to the marine life. And this is one of the papers. It says that they just formulate with the help of citizen science. They club together with the scientific perspective, and they just bring out good results. So it's a piece of paper which will help you to know how we can do together. And then that's all about this today's presentation. Thank you. And it's July 3rd. It's World Seabird Day. So just celebrate. And that's all. And I would like to say the couple of acknowledgements are there. The photos, most of the photos are taken from the oriental bird images. And there's a lot of Badwish and Muni. There's a help a lot in the making the presentation out of that. And so that's all. Thank you. And off to you, David.
And there are some questions in the chat box. Can you please check?
Yeah, of course. So just chat. Okay.
From 737, how much depth the seabed can dive?
Sorry, just like 1 second. Questions. Okay. Okay. Question I think. So okay, how much bird depth can it's asked by the I think Mira? I think it's I don't know. It's and there's one question says that how much depth the seabirds can dive. Some in case of this reported that in the case of penguins and all those things they can up to 50 or some cases they report that up to 100 meters they can dive, but it's I don't think that it's almost 15. In case of gannets and boobies, they can dive up to 10 to 15 meters to catch the prey. If then yeah, common seabirds of Lakshadweep. So the yeah, it's, Dr. Mira just asked common seabirds of Lakshadweep. Here they spotted almost 43 species of, you can see the including gulls and terns. They just spot almost 43 species are included. And in case of pelagic birds, I think it's 21, in between 21 and 28. Then Sharat, Shamsi asked the question that how you ever see massacring petrel in the Indian waters? No, sorry. Then next question is again. Dr. Miras again asks, is there any migratory seabirds? Yes, of course. Almost all the seabirds are migratory, and only we have a stable population in like Sooty and Sooty cluster terns and brown noddy in Lakshadweep. And all the birds species are probably migratory, and especially all the procellariforms and skuas are migratory species. Okay, then during monsoon, strong wind force a lot of pelagic birds towards the mainland. Many die during the course. Yeah, insurance. Yeah, yes, right. But and the other fact is that when you go to the pelagic, to any of the fisheries during the monsoon, you can see a lot of birds, including the shearwaters, and you see that. But if you take the photo, it's difficult, but you can see the birds in the larger groups. Yeah, then migration of seabirds, yes, a lot of birds. Also, almost all birds do migration, and we got in Indian waters. We have my representative from the Australia, Mauritius, and also from the northern region, northern hemisphere. Also, we have some individuals. They come out to the Indian waters mainly for foraging and as a winterings. And Dr. Mira is again asking, what about the nest making? Okay, in case of procellary forms, they just make nest in the uh, holes and dig out in the holes and also make in the land. And also in the case of sooty tern and also brown noddy, they also lay eggs in the land. They just make small bridges out and they just lay the eggs. And in case of frigatebird and some kind of boobies, they have make nest, but we can say that it's much like, or have a base like a passeriforms, nest made by the passeriforms and other songbirds. Yeah, brown squaw is also seen, but not included in the slide. It's brown squaw is also there. It's much more steadier. It's much more. When we convert to the Pomeranian of squaws and the Arctic squaw, they are much shorter in size. So I know that I don't have photos with to kill you the your answers. Definitely brown squaws are, but it's rarer in case of when you convert to the squaws, the long-tailed squaws, Arctic and the Pomeranian and Arctic is much common, and along with the long-tailed squaw is much common. Where they may again Dr. Mayer, where they make their nest. Okay, most of the things they can most of the seabird they just make their nest in the cliff and there's isolated islands because there's much more safer and lots of predation. The predation is also very less and threat is also comparatively less when compared to the mainland. And also it's much more safer because I just told you about that nest making ability. They just lay the eggs in the cliff, so they get attacked much in the ground, so they just get attacked very fast, and probably the vulnerability also very high. So they just choose in the cliff and also the isolated islands in the sea. And okay, during the presentation also. How do you observe the feeding behavior of the seabirds and the shorebirds? Okay, for shorebirds, it's very quite easy. For the seabirds, we can just go along with the fishermen, so it will give you an idea of how they are following the stream. And most of the feeding behavior, it's gulls and terns. It's much more observed in case of in Kerala waters, in case of fisheries, and to tell you that the gulls, they just and the gulls. An interesting fact I just observed is that most of the now I don't know, maybe because of the habituation also the habitat also they just change the habitat. They just wait for the discard because after the each catch they just thrown out the discard fishes, and most of the gulls and they just follow the fish and just interestingly just wait for the discard and that kind of things. Okay. uh, Yeah, when we approximately then Rahan Matthias asked the question like approximately how many species of seabirds do you have on the Malabar and Konkan coast? And when we compile all the checklists, we can say that almost when we truly say that when the pelagic forms is almost 21 to 23 species, we can say, and almost when we include the gulls, terns, etc., we can say it's almost 60 plus And I don't probably say that gull. You can't say strictly. We can't say that it's a seabird. Yeah. Pollution level in sea causes any changes in seabird breeding, like Chitrabahu. Okay, Pagarvur. Okay, so sorry for that. I don't have a clear-cut answer for that seabird and how the pollution affects the breeding level. Possibly in the next couple of years later, maybe I can give answer to that. So now I don't look into that. That's why. So the what distance the seabird sees it define pelagic and changes to spot these birds. Okay, so it's a question done by Anuj Rania. So we can in case of pelagic birds, it depends. I think most probably if you go deep into about 15 kilometers from the Kerala, the offshore to Kerala, so Kerala you can find skuas and all things. And if you move much deeper to the sea, you can see other forms. But the interesting thing is that we can find most of the seabirds in the sometimes in the shore itself also. You can see the shearwaters and skuas come sometimes comes towards the coast, and but probably the chances is between above 15 kilometers from the shore you can find more seabirds. And one of the good things is that if you get a fisherman's boat, you can go there, because while they take back the fish, the fish will approach, the birds will approach, and the chances of the probability of getting fish is also very high. Mm. How do you think the Simran Gupta is asking question that how do you think can MBAs keep a check on the count of seabird? Yeah, the more important areas definitely they have they just key, yeah, because they are protected land. I think according to my knowledge, from my knowledge, I say that yeah, they can improve a lot the count of seabirds, because they are protected area, and hunting activities and the pollution. We are vigilant on that area, so it will it will give a positive impact on the increase in the count of seabirds. Then yeah, how do you do the sampling? Okay, we can. I just usually follow the transit method to do the count diversity and also things, and that's the primary part. I'm just doing the sampling for just counting. Usually the point shoot method and line transit methods are usually followed, but when we go along with the fishermen, most of the time we can't follow the strict transit method, but we can approximately when we convert with that, uh, most of the time it's possible to maintain a line transit, but it's not, we can't say that it's Packard line transit method. Then Sanush AL asking the nice how we can identify male and female in seabirds. Based on the plumage, we can't expect of very few species like a frigatebird have this sexual dimorphism in the male and female, and but most of the cases they look similar in so by plumage it's very difficult to identify. So Anuj Rania, so what is the best season for locating the pelagic birds inside the sea? Uh, it's a tricky question. Like you can see from the mid of from you can see that from November onwards the season starts, or can September onwards it's very high. But the if you are a parka in field, or in the case of field, I mean it's challenging. Well, if the sea is rough, it is very challenging to go into the sea if you, because most of them may cause sickness. Otherwise, if you go to the monsoon, also you can find more birds. Yeah, in numbers also. Yeah, how many seabird species are there in? Okay, it's almost 60. It's almost 63 species are reported along the Indian coast, and also when we speak about the pelagic forms, the true seabirds, we can say that's only almost 30 or 30 to 33. So, and in case of the Indian subcontinent, it's almost 35 species are recorded. And specific to Kerala and West region, it's almost 22, I think 22 species. Oh, I think there's a the Vikramaditya Sahu asked what is the bird status in your state before 3 to 5 years and now. actually there is not such studies are carried out, and we actually we have only we have is a checklist. It's reported, and I went from the study, from my study also, I just spotted out almost 16 species till so far. I just concluded with the 16 species of pelagic forms, and also almost 30 to 33 species of seabirds in total, we can say. So I don't know the what to the when we compare, if you want to compare with the 3 year status, we need to look for that. Uh, yeah, foraging of offshore birds. So while doing again, the Dr. Mira was asking the about the feeding behavior. I think it's a feeding behavior of the of the offshore seabirds. Okay, uh, in the case of by doing the survey and also things we just observed for a long time, if you track the bird, if you just wait for them, you can sometimes, so I can say that it's every time is go for feeding, but sometimes go for feeding. In case of skuas and all the things, the kleptoparasitism or the stealing of food, it's much prominent. It can easily visible in case of skuas and all those things, and the case of boobies. In most of the cases, the boobies are windblown to Kerala shores. So I don't find anything like I just seen only in the feeding habitat of the skua, the foraging activities of gulls, terns, and skuas. That so they if we go for the transit survey, if we wait for that, and most of the foraging areas of terns and gulls can be more can easily documented, or you can I know I may not say that it's easily, you can document it by during along with the fishermen, but they drag out the net, then the the fish get aggregated. So on that time, they just show the typical foraging strategies like gulls. They just have a dipping movement, and it's because of in case of terns and terns, they just move into that plunging kind of activities shown. Okay. Then mother Nile. Okay. Seabirds can dive even can only dive, even terrestrial birds can dive or not. Uh, it's a question that see, okay, terrestrial birds, I mean, they don't have much characters to which supports for diving. And in case of cormorants and almost all the water birds, they can do dives like grebes. We can consider, if we consider as a water birds, yes, they can dive like seabirds, but not much prominent. Okay, then. The Southeast India, I think there is a Gulf of Mannar region also they have, and also with the, and also some part of the Tamil Nadu Chennai region also they is conducting some kind of some pelagic surveys are there. So in the East Coast also, I think the Ravichandra Bhandari is doing one of the PhD in the Bay of Bengal region, and he just gives a good idea for that. And I don't know much more about that to Ramya Sri. And so Madan Mohan Kumar, again, it's we can identify seabird easily or not. Okay, that question is depends on in the field. It's one way we can easily identify if the characters are there, but identification characters are much prominent. In case of gulls and terns, it's much possible. In case of petrels, it's easy. And but in other case like shearwaters and scores and other forms, it's maybe a little tricky. And if you get the photos, I don't say that we need a clear cut photos or something like that. If even the vague photos, we can get get clear idea and ID. It is in some way it's easy to get. So most of the species is easy, but tricky is in the case of scores and also some kind of shearwaters. And even with the good photographs or with the photographs on different angle will help you a lot in the ID. Okay, during our cruise, we used to see petrels near the Lakshadweep Island. Have you studied about that group? So it's I just started. It's the first time I just went to the Lakshadweep area, so it's a few months back, and I just also completed the preliminary surveys over there, and I just spot some Persian shear waters and some kinds of. And one time I just mentioned about the Vincent storm petrel near to the cruise ship. That's all about that. Yeah. Then Chitraba Chitra Banu. Okay, but again, ask question: is seabird drink fresh water? Yes, of course. If they get fresh water, and they can easily drink, and they usually they just used up with the salt water. They can drink the seawater and the fresh water both. In case of if they drink the seawater, the excess salt will eject out through the glands. That's all. Anuj, any study of symbolic relationship between birds and whales? Yeah, in foreign. Yeah, there's a lot of there's some literature is available on the seabird whale interactions, and I just brought out some of the interactions between the seabirds and the tuna fish in the Lakshadweep, and they just and also the fishermen they just chase for the group of birds over that they just search for the birds and for the catch the tuna, and what kind of relation which I observed is that the tuna they pull the fish, a small pelagic fish, and its feces feed along with the seabirds and tuna. They feed along, consume the sardines and the small fishes together. Mm. So Binu Bahu, I asked question that in aquatic birds, many of them are endangered or extinct. It's very much difficult to conserve them, and we convert to terrestrial. Yes, and in your opinion, is there any critical mechanism of to conserve them? Actually, for practical mechanism is for in my view to protect the uninhabited islands. That's the only way, and you can say that most of the human disturbance is also very high in case of inhabited islands and the breeding colonies. If you could able to protect the breeding colonies intact, then we can some extent we can manage. And I think the BNHS they started the PT conservation plan in the PT island, and there's the in the PT island, the Lakshadweep fishermen they just go and caught the eggs. They collect the eggs. It's very frowned in the PT Island in a few years back. Now it's protected under it's considered as a Salimali sanctuary now. So while just protecting the breeding colonies, it will help you. It helps to increase that's only the best way. Okay, the Akhil Likeness is asks the question that what is the extent of seabird bycatch associated with the fisheries in Kerala? What are your suggestions to overcome this? Okay, it's a nice question. I think then the case of fisheries, bycatch is much prominent in case of hook lines and all those things, and also in case of gillnet fishery. And to overcome this, it's much more difficult, I think, to answer that question. Thank you. Sorry for that. Okay.
Nisanth, can you put your email on the chat box
Yeah.
so that any questions can be mailed to you and you can answer
Right,
it?
okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I will change to everyone like once again. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions can be forwarded to the email.
Yeah.
Nisanth HP at gmail.com.
Yeah. Okay. David, do we have time or? Okay, Jed.
Oh, okay. No more questions is there? Okay.
Yeah, I think this is one more question: that seabird can able to survive in terrestrial ecosystem or not? That's question again by Madhu. So, in some, it's another important question. It's yes, during the breeding season they just come to the land and they just associated with the terrestrial ecosystem. And in skuas, there's reported in the forest itself. In case of Kerala in the Periyar, I think it's in Periyar. They just spotted skuas in there. In the few years back in the survey. That's all. Okay, I think it's finished with the question, I think.
Okay. I don't know. Thank you, Nisanth, for the very informative class on the seabirds.
Thank you.
Tomorrow we'll be having a session on the life of bees by Sudhi. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.